You ever hear a number that's just so big it doesn't even feel real? Like a million, a billion, or how about a lakh? It's easy for these huge numbers to just be words, but what if we could actually get a feel for them? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. And believe it or not, our whole journey starts with a simple conversation about rice. So picture this. We're in a market in Chintamani, Karnataka. A farmer, his name's Eshwarappa, is just going about his day, buying some seeds, and then he overhears someone say something pretty wild. That India used to have about 1 lakh different kinds of rice. 1 lakh! I mean, wow. And that single number is what kicks off this whole exploration for us today. Okay, so what is a lakh, really? I mean, how do you even begin to get a handle on a number that huge? Well, to figure it out, we're going to try and pin it down with something we can all understand. Time. So Eshwarappa gets home, and of course, he tells his kids, Estu and Roxy, about this crazy number. And you know how kids are, their minds just start racing. Estu especially comes up with this brilliant little thought experiment to try and make sense of it all. And here's the question he came up with, and I really want you to think about this one for a second. Let's say you tasted one brand new variety of rice every single day. Could you get through all 1 lakh varieties in a 100-year lifetime? I mean, 100 years. That feels like forever. That's got to be enough time, right? Okay, so let's do the math. It's actually pretty simple. You've got 365 days in a year, right? And we're talking about a whole 100-year lifetime. So you just multiply those two together to see how many days you'd actually have for this epic rice tasting adventure. And the answer is 36,500. Just let that sink in for a moment. After a full century of tasting a new kind of rice every single day, you wouldn't even be halfway to 1 lakh. Not even close. The difference is just, wow, it's staggering. So right there, that little experiment gives us a real feel for the scale we're talking about. 1 lakh is 100,000. It's a 1 with 5 zeros after it, and it's way, way more than what our dedicated taste tester could even get through in a whole lifetime. Suddenly, that number isn't just a word anymore, is it? All right, so we've got a better grip on the size of a lakh, but now let's talk about how you actually write it. Because, and this is where it gets interesting, it turns out not everyone on the planet puts the commas in the same spot. I mean, the number itself, the value, is the same everywhere. But how you write it, well, that totally depends on where you're from. And it really all just boils down to the commas. See, the international system, which you see in a lot of places, groups the numbers in nice, neat sets of 3. Easy enough. But the Indian system, which is common in India and its neighbors, does something a little different. It starts with a group of 3 from the right, and then it switches to groups of 2 after that. So this is how that all shakes out in practice. What the Indian system calls a lakh, or 1 lakh, is what the international system calls 100,000. 10 lakhs, that's a million. A crore is 10 million, and an Arab is a billion. It's a bit like a translation guide for numbers. The amount is exactly the same. It's just the names and the comma placements that change. And just as a cool little side note, these words aren't just made up. Lakh and crore actually have really deep roots. They come from the ancient Sanskrit words laksha and koti. So there's a ton of history packed into those terms. So, up until now, we've been all about being super precise. But let's be real, in everyday life, we don't always need the exact number. A lot of the time, we're just looking for something that's about right. And that, my friends, is the art of estimation. You know what I mean, right? If someone asks you how far it is to the next town, you're not going to say, oh, it's 34.7 kilometers. You'd say, it's about 35 kilometers. It's a mental shortcut. It gives you the main idea without getting stuck on the tiny details. But how we choose to round is actually a pretty strategic move. So when do you round up? Well, here's a perfect example. Planning for an event. Let's say your school has 732 students and staff. You're not going to order exactly 732 sweets, and you're definitely not going to round down to 700. No way. You'd round up, maybe to 750. And why? Simple. It's way better to have a few extra sweets than to have even one person miss out. You round up to be safe, to have that little buffer. Okay, so what about rounding down? Well, think about when you're shopping. An item costs, say, 470 rupees. A shopkeeper who wants to make it sound like a good deal might say, oh, it's around 450. See what they did there? They rounded down to make the price sound a little bit lower, a little more appealing. It's kind of like a psychological trick to make the number feel better. Okay, so we've wrestled with the massive size of a lakh, we've untangled the mystery of the 2 comma systems, and we've talked about the strategy behind rounding. Now it's time to bring it all home, back to our story, and put you in the driver's seat. Remember where this whole thing started? In Ishwarappa's hometown of Chintamani. Well, according to the census, the exact population was 76,068. Super precise, right? But let's be honest, that's not exactly a number that rolls off the tongue. It's not something you'd remember. So, here's your final challenge. If you were just chatting with a friend and wanted to give them a quick idea of how big Chintamani is, you wouldn't use that exact number. You'd round it. So, what would you say? Would you say, oh, it's about 75,000 people? Or maybe you'd be a bit more specific and say about 76,000. Or you could round up to the nearest big number and just say about 80,000. You know what? They're all good answers. Each one just gives a slightly different feeling, a different level of detail. And that really gets to the heart of it all. There isn't always one single right answer. It's all about the context. And that's the real power of understanding numbers, knowing when you need to be exact and when about right is all you really need. So, which one feels right to you? What would you choose?